Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I don't feel very well today, but nevertheless I'm good enough to make a few videos. So what's going on here? The coalition of the willing, so-called, meets in Paris as we speak. Supposedly there are 38 countries, the participants, some in person, some via video conference. I will read you the list and I will look into the details of the security guarantees these guys say they are ready to provide Ukraine on the day of the peace agreement. That's the first topic. The second one is what Russia says about it. What do you think Russia says about it? And we're going to have Zakharova telling us exactly how they feel about it. And I will give you Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russian Federation, his version of when the conflict would end or what are Russia's conditions. Now, you might have heard these things in a way or another before. We want troops on the ground. We want this, we want that. Okay, we are ready to provide security guarantees. Maybe you heard the Russians saying almost daily, troops on the ground as security guarantees provided by NATO member states in Ukraine are unacceptable. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a child who would not listen commands. I was not following commands. Therefore, I got smacked a lot of times by adults, teachers, parents, so on. That was a method to deal with me being told to do something repeatedly and simply refusing to do it, right? Or ignoring it. I got smacked and I did it after I got smacked. Do you understand what's going on here? So these guys in the coalition of the willing, they keep saying one thing, and the Russians tell them no. It's unacceptable. No. No. And these guys are not listening. The next day they come and tell the Russians, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And the Russians are like, are you stupid? Didn't I say that for the past, 5 months already? There's no troops deployment as peacekeeping forces, that's a euphemism, NATO troops in Ukraine. And these guys come with the same thing. So let's look into the details. By the way, the great leader Zelensky, in charge of the Ukrainian nation, he's over there. He's right now in to discuss the security guarantees, all right, and troops on the ground. So let's start with the first topic and the first article. New Voice of Ukraine. This is from September 4th, 2025. Macron, or Facron, whose popularity is 20%. This is his approval rating right now in France. But he is the leader of France. I thought democracy is based on the majority rules, and here we have this guy who has no more than 20%, according to the polls that I found, and he's still in charge. I thought democracy is, the will of the majority. Who are those 20%? All right, some French people, I guess. So here's what this guy says. Ukraine's allies have finalized military security guarantees to support Kiev in countering possible future Russian aggression after the peace deal is reached, Emmanuel Macron announced on September 3rd. Now I have a question, and I'm also giving you probably what's going on, the answer here. Do you remember Minsk Agreements 2 in 2015? Do you remember that it was signed by 4 countries? It was Russia, Ukraine, and then you had 2 guarantors. Do you remember the countries that were the guarantors? Yes, one of them was France. So one of them was France and the other one was Germany. They guaranteed that the Ukrainians will implement the Minsk agreements. They didn't. Therefore, why should anybody trust France again in providing security guarantees? Even the Ukrainians should not believe the French or the the Germans into this. Angela Merkel, if you remember, and Holland or France, they said, we are the ones that are going to provide. And then in the interviews about a year ago, they both said, we had no intention to tell Kiev to fulfill its obligations. We were just buying time so they, the Americans, can arm them and the Brits, and that's why the Brits did not sign anything. And then they were ready to do what they did in 2022. So, I don't believe these guys. I wouldn't, including the fact that this is the French army. And it's not the French Foreign Legion. That would be different. You got some tough foreigners, but here you have the soybean French. Give them some, I don't know, mild wine and some cheese. Not all of them, but most of them are pussified, like many people in the Western Europe especially. Thanks for the contributions prepared, documented, and confirmed this afternoon at the defense minister level under strict secrecy. We can now say this work is complete and ready for political approval, Macron said at Élysée Palace in Paris during a reception for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, because he's Ukrainian, as they want you to think. The security guarantees are to include strengthening the Ukrainian military. That's something that the Russians said, no, and I'm going to give you the alternative. What the Russians actually say: sending ground troops to secure peace in Ukraine and involving the US in securing commitment. That is, supposedly, NATO will be in Ukraine with the American logistics and the military support, which is arms manufacturing, private arms manufacturing companies, and these guys will send the people, their people, the European people, to maintain the peace. So if something breaks out, the Americans will just give you, like right now, give the Ukrainians, then they're going to give to the Europeans to fight the Ruskies. Sounds good? You want to do that? You go, send your child. All right, let's go. Paris will host, September 4, a coalition of the willing meeting led by Macron and Prime Minister Keir Starmer. All right, then tell us how many, some people are over here, and there will be a phone call with Trump. A telephone conversation between European leaders and US President Donald Trump is scheduled for 3 o'clock p.m., followed by a final press conference at 4. All right. Zelensky arrives at Élysée Palace for 38 Nation Summit. Now this is, or these are, just so you know, Al Capone's plantation. These are. Plus a few more that are around the globe that could not travel over there. That's it, about 45. So when you hear the West, or you hear public opinion, the international community, they refer only to these guys. They don't include Zimbabwe over there, or now my Burkina Faso, another country that I like. Okay? They don't include them. No. Why? They say different things that we don't like. So let's see the 28 nations, and I will read them to you. Here are the baboons right there. And this is a guy right there. What can I tell you? Ukrainian president, because every time you have to hear about Zelensky, you have to know that he's Ukrainian, not the president of Ukraine. All right, so he's over there with Starmer. He arrived on the 3rd. The 38 countries, including US President Trump Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. He left after 45 minutes, just so you know, after the meeting. They say it was all planned. And then the conversation is over there. Plus this secretary. This is a secretary, Rutte, and other participants will join remotely. Coalition of the meeting. Paris reveals who is attending. Yeah, we're crazy. Look at these guys. Can you believe these guys are... Oh, look at it. It's just... My God. I don't know about you, my friends, but if you work with people, if you're trained, if you have something extra, and again, if you work with people, you have a life experience and you understand people. For some of us, it's very easy just looking at a person to shape a character out of that person. And you're going to be probably between 90 and 98% on the spot, right there, boom, on the right track. So if you look at these guys and look at each person's face in this picture, you could, with I think with an accuracy of, in this case, 98% accuracy, to recognize the weasel shape of all these guys. Look at them. These are clowns. You can tell me, oh well, how they look Look, you can look at their body language. You can look at their faces. It's unbelievable. I know nowadays we're supposed to not see these kind of things because they would be stereotyping. But, you know, people who work in other fields, they work and use it. Like, for instance, IQ tests. IQ tests are xenophobic. But they use them in the military, for instance. Why, if they're xenophobic? Oh, because we have a structural racism here. Shut down. You know what I mean? All right, so let's read who are the countries here. 7 European leaders and EU leadership and the President of Ukraine will attend the Coalition of the Willing meeting in Paris for in person. And the leaders of around 20 other countries will join remotely. All right, so in person, we have French President Macron, 6 other EU leaders, Belgian Prime Minister, Dutch Prime Minister, Danish Prime Minister, Finnish President, Polish Prime Minister, and Spanish Prime Minister. Also attending in person will be European Commission Ursula von der Leyen, European Council President Antonio Costa, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who arrived in Paris yesterday. Oh, thank God. Oh, vey. Joining remotely will be NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and leaders from around 20 countries across Europe and beyond. Let's read the imbeciles. The weasels, the vassal states, that's what they are. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, I expected him to be in Paris. I don't know why he's not. Giorgia Meloni, Italian Prime Minister. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, I thought he was in person. Wasn't he? Romanian President, oh my God, the baboon right here. Nicu Șordan, Jesus Christ, this guy. But hey, I don't think he's worse than Biden. Bulgarian Prime Minister, Estonian Prime Minister, Latvian Prime Minister, Lithuanian President, Norwegian, Swedish Prime Minister, Czech Prime Minister. All right, Fiala. Luxembourg, ooh, the Russians are shaking in their Quakers. Luxembourg. Irish Prime Minister, Portuguese, Greek Prime Minister, Croatian, Slovenian, Albanian, Montenegrin, Canadian, Japanese, Australian, New Zealand. Okay, that's about right. These guys are really the ones that are part of the club. And we hear Austria will be represented by Foreign Minister, Iceland by Foreign Minister, and Turkey by a Vice President. Among EU members, only Slovakia, Hungary, and Malta will be absent. They seem to be independent. In total, representatives from 33 countries are taking part. Hoorah! So those are the guys. Europeans and a few guys from New Zealand, Australia, Japan. I didn't see the Iceland over there, but it's considered Europe. Austria over there, but Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Japan. Where is South Korea? I haven't seen South Korea. All right, 10 push-ups for that one. All right, let's move to the next, which is Spiegel. That's a German tabloid. Learns Germany's potential contribution to security guarantees for Ukraine. You got it? Germany. And let's see what Germany will do. Right here, September 4th. Look at these guys. I'm in charge of you because I keep you guilty. But you're not guilty. You make your nation be guilty by pretending you're guilty. You're not guilty and you know it. Hey, I know that too. Let's move. Germany has proposed a major contribution to strengthening air defense and other capabilities of the Ukrainian armed forces in discussions on security guarantees for Ukraine after the potential end of the hot phase of the war, while avoiding any commitments regarding Bundeswehr participation in a contingent. Avoiding. All right, so Spiegel said that during the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing, military allies supporting Ukraine in Paris Thursday, Berlin will propose strengthening Ukraine's air defense as its main contribution. An annual increase of 20% is planned, both in terms of the number of weapon systems and their effectiveness. The plan further includes contributions to improving Ukraine's long-range capabilities to strike inside Russia. This is just a regrouping, my friends. Particularly support for the production of cruise missiles, Taurus, carried out by on Ukrainian territory with financial and technical backing from partners. In addition, Germany is ready to arm 4 mechanized brigades, which would involve supplying about 480 armored personnel carriers and other infantry fighting vehicles per year. Got it? All right, so let me tell you this. These guys clearly tell, we're going to go over there, we're going to strengthen Ukraine for phase 2 of the war against Russia. And the Russians are just baboons. They don't get it or something. They think the Russians don't know about it. So these guys want, as the Russians say, a respiro, to have time to rearm and get ready again, like they did from 2015 to 2021. That's what they wanted. And the Russians are dumb. And here we have what the Brits want. This is what the Germans want, and this is what the Brits want. A coalition of the willing's plans to deploy troops to Ukraine are real and substantial. You got it, man. Will be disclosed right there. Plans being developed within the coalition of the willing to deploy troops as part of security guarantees for Ukraine are substantial and real. But no details will be disclosed. So these guys say the same garbage. And this is what Zakharova said, the Russians. Again, this is 9 hours ago, today on the 4th of September. Zelensky's security guarantees for Ukraine unacceptable. Right there. Unacceptable. So what do we have here? An elected president, another elected president with 20%, but he banned opposition, which is Marine Le Pen in France, unelected, whatever she is, unelected, not directly elected. His party was elected, therefore he became the president because his party got 28% and was the biggest party. That's how this guy became the chancellor. An unelected official right there. This is a secretary appointed by these guys right here. A guy who already bypassed or failed for a year and a half, almost more a year and a half, to conduct elections in his country, but in the country he is in charge of, which is Ukraine. He is Zelensky Stein, remember? This is the Finnish guy, all right? I don't know about, probably he's elected, I don't know. Keir Starmer, the same thing as this guy. His party won elections, again as a majority, about 20%, and he is over there, okay? Not directly elected. And there she's appointed and confirmed by the European Commission, unelected by people. So unelected. This is the democracies we're supposed to love. F off, right? Security guarantees for Ukraine, the President Volodymyr Zelensky wants are unacceptable. Again, I have to say it. All these ideas of the Kiev ringleader, I like that. That's why I like Maria Zakharova very much. Ringleader, he's a ringleader, I have to use that. Which in fact are carbon copy of the initiatives of European sponsors. Not even sponsors, but the European War Party. As we have already said more than once, are absolutely unacceptable. They are aimed at preserving Ukraine as a springboard for terror, for provocations against our country. They are not guarantees of Ukraine's security. They are guarantees of insecurity to the European continent. Because you guys are going to start again, and you're going to blame us, and we're going to be at war again. So where's the security guarantees? There's no security. The security is that we're going to fight again. Zakharova said. Good for you, Zakharova. All right, so what do we have here? Russia says potential military troops deployment in Ukraine unacceptable. Reuters. There she is. Man, you don't get it. We don't accept it, and we are in charge here, not you. Again, Russia has no plans to discuss any potential foreign military deployment in Ukraine in any format, calling it unacceptable. Why? Because that was one of the main reasons why the Russians enter Ukraine. I know, it was unacceptable, unjustified, just an aggression, imperialistic tendencies and all the garbage, the recreation of the Soviet Union. This is what these operatives and their media bosses are telling us to believe. We know it's not so. So they want NATO. This guy says you can't get NATO in because we say so. There's a security threat to us. And we're going to fight for that militarily. And the NATO said, okay, we want to see it. After all, it's the Ukrainians who are going to die, nothing from our guys, imbecile military over there, formers. And we got our generals somewhere in Ramstein, the band, in Germany, commanding and controlling the war for us. So there you go. We take the deal. And the Russian says, okay, jawohl, let's go. Because that's jawohl means in Russia, okay, let's go. Okay. So they did. And now they're at war. And someone is losing and someone is winning. Not, like a big win, but they're steadily winning. So the Russians will not accept NATO troops in Ukraine. That was the main thing. And you want now to bring them in as under the cover of peacekeeping troops and guarantees? No, thank you very much. That ship has sailed. The train left the station a while ago, like in 24th of February 2022, to be more exact. All right? And let's see what the Russians' terms are, right? And this is again from yesterday. Again. And they say the same thing. Moscow lays out terms for comprehensive peace with Ukraine. Kiev should commit to bloc neutrality and acknowledge the new territorial reality. And that's not all of it. Again, Ukraine must recognize its territorial losses, guarantee the rights of the Russian-speaking population, and agree to security arrangement that poses no threat to Moscow. This was why they got in. We don't care. That's our interest. You have your interest. We have ours. If we can't negotiate it, then we're going to go to war for them. In an interview with Indonesian newspaper Kompas, released on Wednesday, Lavrov signaled that Russia is open to talks with Ukraine, but noted that a quote-unquote durable peace is only possible if Moscow territorial gains, including Crimea, the Donetsk, the Luhansk People's Republic, Kherson region, and Zaporozhye region, are recognized and formalized in an international legal manner. Doesn't really matter. It's like a marriage. It's on the paper. Is it? No, the marriage is a connection between two. It's a relationship. The paper is zero. You just take care of some taxes and so on. But the reality is the relationship. The same here. We can put that oh yeah, we recognize Crimea being yours, Donbass being yours, and so on. And tomorrow we attack you. And what they're gonna do? You're gonna bring that paper and gonna tell us, you signed. Do you think these guys will care? That's why. Yeah, they want to make it appear legal, the Russians, for the rest of the world, because that's their goal. That's a PR here. Those guys break their agreements, which is the West. They lie. They do what they do. They try to take over other countries through their vassal states. And we are the good people here. And the other way is true for the other side. And the countries say, okay, these are words. What are the actions? And they know what the actions are. You don't do what I tell you, I'm going to sanction you. I'm going to tax you. I'm going to put tariffs on you. If you still don't do that, I'm going to overthrow your regime change. And if you don't do that, we're going to straight attack you because you attacked us somewhere where we say you attacked us. Got it? That's the way these guys functions. And the world sees this. Because those guys think if that happened to Saddam, if that happened to Assad, if that happened to Gaddafi, if that happens now, they try to do it in Iran, if that happened to Yugoslavia, if this happens to the Russians, that's going to happen to us, no problem. So that means I either yes, and these guys change me whenever they want, not change my diapers, but change me like get the hell out, or they're going to remove me by force. I'm just a vassal. Right there. And here it is. Lavrov further asserted that peace hinges on eradicating the underlying cause. Guys, you gotta understand, this is what it is of the conflict, which stems from NATO's expansion and I'm quoting, attempts to drag Ukraine into this aggressive military bloc. Ukraine's neutral, non-aligned, and non-nuclear free status must be ensured. These conditions were spelled out in Ukraine's 1990 Declaration of Independence, and Russia's international community used them to recognize Ukrainian statehood. And I know some people say that was violated by the Russians in 2015-14. They invaded and so on, they took Crimea and so on. No, it was violated by someone else who said one day Ukraine will be part of NATO, and that was George W. Bush in Bucharest summit in 2008. That means he said, yeah, you're neutral, but one day you will not be neutral, you'll be ours. Why? We work on that. And then in 2014, some traitors conducted a coup d'etat, bloody coup d'etat, with the help of foreign actors, agencies and overthrew a legitimate government of Ukraine. And why? Those were from the guys who said in 2008, one day you will be ours. And that's why the Russian says the neutrality was broken. We don't have to respect it anymore. Why? Because you took over it. All right, got that? So these are, my friends, the coalition of the willing. The same mantra. The Russians will never accept that. The Russians told you what they want, and they will get it. Clearly, it's nothing more or less to that. They said this. For so many years already. Let me see if I see something here. Culture, traditions, Pak Orthodox Church. Anyway, and here it is at the end. Ukraine has also rejected any territorial concessions to Russia and continues to pursue its aspiration of joining NATO. Well, all right, my friends. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.